A very good evening to you and a warm welcome to Galaxy Prime. Thank you so much for joining us. To all our viewers across the continent, we certainly appreciate it. We come a little bit later to you today. That's because we have quite a prolific interview lined up for you today. My name is Mkhwebane. We're coming to you live from our Midrand studios here in Johannesburg. We're in channel 500 on StarSat. Now, just to give you a brief preview of who our guest is today, and to those of you who may not know, she needs very little introduction if you ask me. Well, in 1994, she joined the Department of Justice as a public prosecutor. Thereafter, from 96, she was a legal administrative officer in the International Affairs Directorate. In 1998, she joined the South African Human Rights Commission as a senior researcher. The following year, she joined the Public Protector's Office as senior investigator and acting provincial representative. In 2005, she left to join the Department of Home Affairs as the Director for Refugee Affairs. She then became the acting chief director in asylum seekers management in 2009. Fast forward to 2010 to 2014, she worked as a counselor immigration and civic services in South Africa's embassy in China. And then thereafter, she was appointed in 2016 as the public protector of South Africa. I'm speaking of none other than Public Protector Busisiwe Mkhwebane. She joins us in studio today. I'm also not alone. My co-pilot is with me today, Sifiso Mahlangu. He is the political editor for independent newspapers, and he will be with me throughout this interview today. Sifiso.
Yeah, well, good evening to you. My wonderful colleague, Audrey Chimwanda Twala. She's married to my friend Dumisani Twala, just for you to know. Welcome to Galaxy Universal Network. We're on channel 500, and for the next hour or so, you and I, across the continent and the world, are in conversation with the Public Protector of the Republic of South Africa, Ms. Busisiwe Mkhwebane. Now, a lot has been said about her, adverse findings against President Cyril Ramaphosa and Minister Pravin Gordhan. She is a woman leader of a Chapter 9 institution. It is Women's Month in this country. We're going to discuss the gender parities, adverse findings, politics, leanings, all of that in this conversation. We have 1 hour with you. If you're watching us from the palm of your hand on your cell phone, don't touch that dial. We're in conversation with the Public Protector. My name is Sifiso Mahlangu. Good evening to you. Ms. Public Protector, welcome you to the show.
Thank you, and good evening to your viewers and listeners.
Yeah, the shining star Sempumalanga Lochani.
Our Lochani.
Yeah, we might snap Audrey of this interview and conduct it in Ndebele. What do you think of that?
Oh, well, you know what, I quite understand this in Ndebele for your own information.
Yeah, happy Women's Month to you.
Thank you so much, and happy Women's Month to all the women of South Africa and the world at large. Actually.
We've been reading such a prolific profile, quite a curriculum vitae that you present to this country. It can't be easy to be a female representative, to lead a Chapter 9 institution, to be the public protector, and it often feels like you come against giants in the industry, having released adverse findings against the head of the state and someone who some define as the Prime Minister, you know, in this country, give or take. How does it feel to be a woman having such a powerhouse, holding such an engine as the office of the Public Protector?
Yeah, what I would say is that, you know, one, Babus Kosana, who was at the Department of Justice, once said to me, in where you are going, you're going to swim with the sharks, but make sure that you don't bleed. Indeed, in this position, we swimming and with the sharks, and making sure as well that one is not bleeding. But this position actually needs a woman. You'd be surprised that in Africa, a lot of the African ombudsmen, most of them are women. And what we're doing as an ombudsman office, because that's better what is called in Africa and the world at large, is that we are representatives of the public and protecting and defending the public against what Chief Justice Mkhwebane once said, that it's like a Goliath-David kind of setup, where the state is a Goliath and the public is a David, because they don't have power. Therefore, being a woman is not difficult to hold such a position. I mean, as women, we have that God-given strength, where we are able to nurture and grow and carry a child for 9 months and deliver a child and raise a child. Therefore, in this position also, you need to have that nurturing within you, because you're dealing with vulnerable people. A lot of our complainants, and 90 to 95% of our complaints relates to bread and butter issues, and it relates to complaints by members of the public who have reached a dead end, where they've lost hope, you know, where the state is not, or public servants are not doing what they are supposed to be doing. Therefore, they come to the public protector to then get that solace, to get that assistance. Therefore, it's what I would say is we are meant to be doing such kind of work as women. And it's easy for us to do that, because most of the time we empathize and we sympathize, and you put yourself in the position of that person who'd sleep, that old woman we helped, Emusina, a 98-year-old, who stayed some months without water. I mean, a 98-year-old, and neighbors had to provide for water for her. Growing up in a rural and dusty area, Yasempumalanga, Ekwagafontein, you could relate to that. How does it feel to travel a long distance with the wheelbarrow, going to fetch water, or even putting a bucket in your head, and imagining that 98-year-old who can't afford to do that? So, in a nutshell, I would say it's not a difficult job to do.
Yeah.
Mm. And just looking at your profile, as I was introducing you to our viewers, from 1994 when you joined the Department of Justice to the office that you hold now, a very important office in the country. Do you think all those profiles that you held prepared you for this position that you hold now?
Definitely, because I mean, when I worked as a prosecutor, in fact, even before finishing my law degree, I was working part-time during June and December holidays, and as a maintenance officer, after that being a prosecutor, prosecuting and dealing with a lot of maintenance related issues. It affects women and children, and also in dealing with the prosecution of your common assault with intention to do bodily grievous harm. So being exposed to that, and knowing how it is to deal with the vulnerable children who are not maintained by their parents, and the repercussions or the consequences to that. Moving to the Department of Justice as well, being exposed to international affairs, especially extradition law, or where there's mutual legal assistance between the countries in case where a child from another jurisdiction or another country needs to be assisted, and how the social works or how the signing mutual legal assistance can help the countries in that aspect. Moving to Human Rights Commission, I mean, especially being a researcher on socio-economic rights, or the rights which South Africans should be entitled to, also then opened my horizon. But working at the Office of the Public Protector as well, because that institution, we deal with each and every piece of legislation. We investigate more than 1,000 state institutions. Therefore, it exposes you to a number of issues. Home affairs, working with asylum seekers and refugees, and they are the most vulnerable as well. I mean, imagine being an asylum seeker having to run away from your country because your country is the one which is persecuting you, then granting you refugee status, checking whether you qualify to be a recognized refugee. And it's even worse in South Africa because we don't even have processing centers or even refugee camps. I mean, you just come to South Africa, you must just find your way through the country. You are a woman, a child, you are also susceptible to human trafficking, human smuggling. Sometimes some of them are transported by their traffickers, and you find that they are slaves within the country because you are brought by this person, you have to serve this particular person. So those are the kinds of things which I knew, and I couldn't even take it light how they were treated sometimes. 2008 xenophobic attacks, when we also had a lot of influx of Zimbabweans coming into the country, how some of them were treated, or name calling. So I could relate to those when people are desperate and people are facing that kind of treatment, and coming in to assist them, give them an enabling document to be legal in the country, to access all the services of South Africa, those who are qualifying for being legal and qualifying for that. So that prepared me a lot for this kind of work.
Yeah. So you in the office of the Public Protector, Audrey and I sat half the night at your interview, providing analysis and intricate journalism when you sat addressed by members of Parliament. Shortly after your appointment in 2016 as the Public Protector, it was like there was a spillage of news. The DA then called you a spy and called for an investigation. Of course, you stood to your guns, but it seems as if society treated the former Public Protector Thuli Madonsela differently from how they treated you. In 2016, all of us as journalists in this country heard this phrase: the findings of the Public Protector are legally binding in the matter between Thuli Madonsela versus Jacob Zuma. But when it's Busisiwe Mkhwebane versus Cyril Ramaphosa, it seems like the scales are different. Are we living in a bipolar society? Do you think that you are treated differently from your predecessor, Thuli Madonsela?
I think I can say that. I mean, you captured it well, because I remember I addressed the TUT students where they were asking about various court cases against the Public Protector, and I was showing them the inconsistencies of the various reports we've issued or various judgments against the institution. It's so unfortunate that, yes, that creates a lot of confusion, that creates a lot of inconsistencies, because I think we should be focusing on what the Constitution is saying about this institution. I think we are sometimes vacillating towards, the situation where, it depends on who is holding this position. And South Africa, we focus on playing the men than playing the ball. And I think that creates a lot of problems for society, because now there would be that unequal treatment between certain individuals, or how the law should apply to certain people, but how it should apply to other people. Other people, they would remain untouchables and they will never account. Whereas then other people will have to be held to account, even if there's allegations against them without any evidence. So in those investigations, or the Public Protector currently using the investigators who were utilized by my predecessor, some of them have been there, some of them I worked with them when I was joining the Public Protector around 1998. So they've been there with the Advocate Bakwa, now Judge Bakwa, with Advocate Mushwana, with Advocate Madonsela, now with me. So they are the ones who are doing this work, and nothing is changing, because when we investigate as an institution, we check what happened, what should have happened, what are the prescripts applicable to whatever happened, and where people have violated the law. Therefore, you cannot come and say, is this Public Protector is a problem, or I'm the one who's writing these reports. those reports are written by those investigators. And I mean, if we appear before the judge when we are taken to court for review, which is another way of making sure, because our judicial system is so developed in such a way that as a public protector, even though my remedial actions are binding, I cannot just go helter-skelter and just make findings which are not legally sound. Because if you are not happy with them, take me on review. But then as well, same applies to the judges. If you then check what the public protector investigated, what laws were violated, did the public protector apply the laws properly? If not, you can then say, set aside that particular report. The interesting part is that there's a lot of development into law, which I wonder as a country would want to go that route. Because when you review a matter, that matter must be reviewed and sent back to the original person who drafted that report to review it, to redo it, in other words. But now we've picked up a number of other reports. They will say, no, set aside, it must not be even sent back to the public protector. What are you saying to the prejudice which was suffered by the complainants? I think that's where then we need to check, is justice done to the people which their public protector was helping? Are you dealing with this person at the detriment of those people who are impacted? And you cannot come as well, being a judge, and issue a judgment this year and say you can investigate, you've got the power to do the following, but then when it's this public protector, no, you cannot refer a matter to NPA, you cannot refer the matter to the speaker, or you cannot have the following findings. So I think we should move away from dealing with an individual. And I mean, DA must still prove, even to this day, because the matter was taken to court, to prove that I'm a spy, because they are the one who are alleging that, and I've taken them to court to say, prove. And if you don't have anything, I only said, you come back, you call that media briefing, you tell South Africans that actually we told you lies. This person is not a spy.
So this dominant narrative that is in South African media that seems to continue to pitch you against your predecessor, and I don't want to perpetuate that, particularly in Women's Month, but we see it happening over and over again. Do you think this is happening to you particularly because you are a woman, or is it a political ploy that is happening here? Do you think it's the media that's being mischievous? How would you interpret it?
Actually, it's the media which is mischievous, because and I don't think I would say it's only women, it's between women, it's Women's Month, but unfortunately, yes, sometimes it might happen more amongst us, but then being perpetuated by the media, because also there are people who compare one president over the other president. It's human nature sometimes to do that, but I think it's very wrong, because the media has a serious power to control the minds of the people, and it's even worse where you'd find people sometimes also not researching for themselves, reading, and also listening to each and every person instead of just concluding that the media told us this person is like this, therefore we are concluding. I think my predecessor served her term for 7 years. Now is another public protector will serve my term for 7 years. When another public protector comes in, it's a question of supporting that public protector if there's a need for one to support. But if there's no need, then that particular person should just proceed as they see fit, because sometimes we don't have the same approach to doing things. Yeah.
You touched on a matter that was sensitive in a country like ours, when an investigator or a public protector has an adverse finding against the banks, and in particular Absa Bank. You're dealing with a monopoly. Some years ago I wrote the story on the CIX report that you were investigating about how Absa got a bailout from the apartheid government, and in the government then called the Government of National Unity did not pay it back. Inherently, the New Democracy was broke because of money borrowed to Absa Bank, at the time called Volkskas and other banks, by the apartheid government. the court lashed out at you, and you know, there was a swarm of bees that came proverbially against you. Do you think that some of this negative publicity, and as you say, the media is mischievous, do you think that content could have been driven by the fact that you touched the untouchables?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, possibly don't touch the banks, or you don't touch, especially even the Reserve Bank, which is a constitutional institution, by the way, which is there also to change the livelihood of South Africans. So that matter was there in the institution. I think it was 6 years or 7 years being investigated. So for me was then to check whatever investigation which has been done, interviews which were done, and then analyze the information and finalize the report. And the way the investigation was also conducted was that whoever was investigated was given an opportunity to also comment on the report, but then I was portrayed as if I gave every one of them received the Section 79 notice, which is what we call, in terms of the Public Protector Act, an opportunity for the implicated parties to respond. And even there, when we give you that, you can respond. You can even, when you respond, we can even change our report because of what you've said. I mean, I remember the National Treasury responded to our Section 79 on a number of issues and the proposed way of resolving the matter, and we incorporated those into our report. The presidency as well responded, and after responding, they even wanted a meeting to clarify their response, why we're responding like this. And it was not stopping ABSA or Treasury or anyone else in the Reserve Bank to also say, we need a meeting, can we sit down, can you clarify the following as well. So unfortunately then that was the worst report one issued, and the intention was purely to say this has happened. And I mean, 2 judges found that loan was unlawful, Judge Heath and Judge Davis. And as the public protector, we were saying, what role did the institutions of government played in the matter? Because CX is the company which investigated those loots which happened, or the monies which were looted during that particular time. And because it was kind of an intelligence kind of structure, then they entered into an agreement with a state security agency. By then it was Secret Service, because that was responsible for international relations. Hence, you'd find that when we were investigating, we had to sit down with state security and say, but did this contract took place? What happened? Did you pay this particular money? And my predecessor interviewed former President Beki, Trevor Manuel, and everyone. We have those records. So I think the issue was, don't touch the Reserve Bank, don't touch the banks. Unfortunately, I had to face the personal costs. And that personal cost was not even dealing with the merits of the matter. I mean, even at the Constitutional Court, I think I remember Chief Justice Mkhwebane also asking questions, but what are you saying about the money which is owed? You just seem to be dealing with the process which was followed. What about this matter? But unfortunately, that matter is still hanging, because the report was only the remedial actions which were set aside, not the findings. The findings still stand. And it's a question of just checking how can we make sure that that matter is taken forward. But again, it depends on the political will, whether you have leadership or politicians who are willing to take the process forward, to benefit, to bring to closure whatever happened in the past. I mean, we still have issues of apartheid legacy, which is still lingering over us as a country. So I think that still needs to be dealt with and closed, and everyone move from the same point. Yeah.
I'd like to draw your attention to the recent North Gauteng High Court judgment, which set aside the SARS Rogue Unit report, which your office had sought to use in your investigation. And the recent judgments that we've seen happening and receiving from the courts, we've seen you being quite vocal in commenting. And whether it's media houses that contact you to hear your side of the story. Of late, you seem a bit muted when it comes to that. This is just my observation. Is that strategic on your part?
I think it's both ways. We can tell our side of the story, but remember, I don't control mainstream media. I don't own the media houses, and it's up to them what they would want to communicate and how they communicate it, instead of balancing or reporting fairly. Because at any rate, you should be saying that report, by the way, is not set aside yet, of the rogue unit. Okay, the Public Protector report, the arguments were yesterday, the 6th, the 6th and the 7th. But then what was argued was the interdict part, which went to the Constitutional Court, and the Constitutional Court, I think you remember, they were also very vocal that you can't treat this institution as you would want, or the comments you would make as an executive. And even the very same Judge Potterell was then told, you cannot, you misdirected yourself in law, and nobody's commenting about her being maybe incompetent, like how I'm being portrayed. But also, I think being quiet as an institution, sometimes we're giving the court process. We still believe in the court process, the objectivity, the own process. Unfortunately, in the setting aside of that IGI report, we were not cited, and it's a challenge, because how do you then take other parties to court and not cite the Public Protector, who also used that report? But I must hasten to say, we conducted our own investigation. That report was not only based on the IGI report. We were checking what happened, what should have happened, what constitutional violations were done by the conduct of that unit by going way above what SARS can do. You understand? I mean, if you're going to conduct covert investigations and plant cameras in DSO office, that is way out of your mandate as SARS. It's totally in violation of the laws of the country. So we were showing that purely as a Public Protector. But then that matter, we were not cited, and apparently there was an agreement between SSA and IGI and Van Lochenbeck that the report should be set aside. And whereas it's interesting, because there was a pending court case where the minister was against the EFF availing that report to the public, which we also wanted to be involved, because we also had an interest in that particular matter. So on other issues, it's not us who are keeping quiet, but we are muted. But on other matters, you'd find that we prefer to give the process its own rightful, yes, and due course, yeah.
Understandably, it's not easy to comment on a matter that is still sub judice. However, on the day after the State of the Nation address this year, I had a sit down with Mr. Julius Malema, who said the rogue unit was in fact very operational, because it spied on him, and he joked that at hotels where he would be with girls, there would be spy works and spy listening devices planted there by the SARS rogue unit. Of course, the journalist who wrote that story, whom I work with, still stands by that writing, that story of the SARS rogue unit. Is it possible, Public Protector, that because of the current political climate, the court finds against you? Is the court politicized right now? Do you trust the independence of the judiciary in South Africa?
You want to put me in trouble. I would say, I pray always when the matter is before court. And I would say, God, let those judges not look at me being possibly portrayed as this person who's factional, who's incompetent, but let them just look what the law is saying. Let them just be objective. Because if we're saying there was a rogue unit, the evidence which we're having as a public protector, which we also acquired independently from that IGI report, which was proving that there was that structure. And if you read that report, we are saying SARS is within their right to conduct an investigation. Definitely people cannot commit a violation of your customs laws, smuggling of goods, cigarettes, which is a violation of the relevant SARS legislations. But then SARS, you cannot then go and also tap or intercept communications, the DSO or NPA. That doesn't fall within your mandate. That is a mandate of State Security Agency. SARS, you cannot also listen to Julius Malema without a court or judge's court order, which gives you the right to do that. Because the law does allow them to do it, but they need to follow process, acquire that. So for me, the challenge is that when taken on review, you'd find that the focus is not on the merits of the matter. The focus is on the process or some technicality. I mean, unfortunately, that's how our legal system is. And then the judgment is only issued on that technicality. But the crux of the matter, like the CX matter, the money, it's still, that loan is still unlawful. That still stands. But then the focus was not on that. The focus was that public protector, you met these, or public protector, you said you relied on an economist report, of which that was clarified. I mean, like Chief Justice Mkhwebane, if you read that minority judgment, it's exactly what happened, because we never used the economists for the investigation, but then we consulted various other sources, of how other reserve banks are operating. The only person we've interviewed is Godson, who passed on, may his soul rest in peace, and we did declare that we used him. So I think I would say it's a challenge to be faced by some judges who would not focus on the law, but just also listen to whatever is happening. And of which, if you are a judge, you shouldn't be listening to what the media has reported about Busisiwe Mahlangu or Busisiwe Mkhwebane. You should listen to the facts and what Busisiwe, and actually not her, but the investigators who conducted the investigation. Yes, the matter was brought to her when it's a complete product, or her guidance throughout that particular investigation. And I mean, it's very clear, the very same judges, at least our democracy says, and our justice system is very developed, as I said earlier, because when we are not happy with that judgment, we can still appeal that judgment to the Supreme Court of Appeal, to even the Constitutional Court.
The man you're quoting, Mr. Stephen Goodson, is the man who died mysteriously a few days after he sat down in an interview with me in another platform to reveal the things we're talking about. And in that interview, Mr. Goodson took your side. The interview is somewhere there on YouTube. And, he spoke against the CX report, saying he felt, as a former director of the Reserve Bank, that ABSA had a responsibility to pay back the money. Of course, then he passed away. But does it give you comfort when you've won a case, or when you've lost a case? And maybe I'm appealing to a personal question. How does it feel when you see yourself on the evening news, or does Mpilo call you to say, hey mom, you're on TV? How take us through that. The day of Busisiwe Mkhwebane is the public protector, news articles and a headline maker, but she's also a mother, right? She's also a member of Victory Fellowship Church. She's an individual, a member of a society. When all of these things happen, what do you say?
I think we said it several times as an office, and especially my spokesperson, saying, you know, we don't look, we are not saying we've won a case or we've lost the case. For us, if that happens, it's justice is served. The complainants, you know, received justice for what we've done for them. Then if that matter, we've lost it, or not lost it per se, but the other party then got what they want, it's a loss for the complainants. It's not basically for me as Busisiwe Mkhwebane. For me, my worry is, but what about that complainant? What about that community? What are we saying to society about that particular matter? Therefore, we will also then check, okay, does that have an impact on the mandate of the public protector? Because most of these matters I'm being accused on that I'm wasting resources. We oppose them because we want to help the court to hear our side of the story, and also to help the court to go to, this is the mandate of the public protector, and we were trying to protect this particular individual. So when that happens and you find that there's that negative judgment, where we see that our mandate has been compromised, we then take it on appeal also, so that another court or other judges might reach a different judgment. So that's what is happening. My family, I mean, since I started working as a public protector, it has been tough. I must say, my brothers, my sisters, my children, they reach a stage where they are no longer watching the news. They would watch other channels, they would watch other things, but stay away from things which were causing them unnecessary pressure. I mean, I remember last year when I was in the news, I think daily, possibly 3 times or 4 times a day. So that's how powerful and that's how well-resourced the mainstream media is, when they would want just to deal with you. Unfortunately, that's what they do, and people will just read the headlines and just think, hey, this woman. Because there's a number of people who, well, I would say they hate me, or they don't want me. They think I'm this woman who is troublesome or problematic. But forums like this helps to engage whoever is watching. And also there would be instances where I conduct interviews, when I conduct, and strangely when I go for my road shows as the public protector, people are concerned about service delivery issues, how we can help them. They are not bothered about all this, what they say, people have no trust on the public protector, or on especially Busisiwe Mkhwebane or Advocate Mkhwebane. So they just know what, in fact, what we can do for them, what we can help. But all these
bread and butter issues, that's what they're concerned about. I suppose it comes with the territory of the Office of the Public Protector, that you would have other people that may not like you and those that do like you with the politics of the country. But we'll take a very short break. This is Galaxy Prime. Soon after this, Sfiso and I will return with Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane. Don't go anywhere. Stay with us.
Hello. Being a legal practitioner in South Africa in these challenging times demands lawyers that will help clients beyond legal issues. The ever-changing demands in commerce and tourism require lawyers who have sound and clear business and commercial knowledge, and that's where MB Chabangu Incorporated comes in. Our business, mining, tourism, health, labor, and economic knowledge encapsulated with law and litigation experience gives us an advantage in the legal sphere. Our experience in assisting businesses, government, and various industries with their needs puts us amongst the many progressive and striving law firms in South Africa. Now, to contact our attorneys for assistance with any of the mentioned fields and others, please call us on 012-341-4187 or send us an email on admin@chabangu.co.za. MB Chabangu Incorporated, where problems meet solutions.
And And a warm welcome back to the program, Galaxy Prime. Thank you so much for staying with us. And to those of you who have just joined us, you haven't missed it all. I'm here with my colleague, Sfiso Mahlangu, Independent Newspaper's political editor. We're in conversation with Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane. She is the Public Protector of South Africa.
Just before the break, Advocate Mkhwebane took us into her confidence on how she felt and that of members of her family when she's lambasted in the media, but raised some pivotal issues to say it's not her losing, it's perhaps the complainants, the members of the public who lodged complaints, many of them who have service delivery issues, the bread and butter issues of discussion. It's not necessarily the palace politics that make headlines, but the issues that the majority should be concerned with.
Precisely, and I see a lot of you at home are sending in your comments. We certainly appreciate it. Those of you who are watching our Facebook pages live as we speak, Galaxy Universal Network, go ahead, give us your comments, and hopefully before we end the show we'll be able to pose some of the questions to Advocate Mkhwebane if she will allow us to do that. Our Twitter handle as well is @GUN_TV_advocate. Over the next couple of months, it appears that you will be battling some court cases in the courtroom. You'll correct me if I'm wrong. How do you think that will affect some of the parliamentary inquiries into your fitness into office and how that will pan out? Are you concerned at all?
I must say that sometimes when I would say no, I'm not concerned, some people say I'm arrogant. It's not that I am not giving attention to that, but my focus now is the very same vulnerable, the people at the grassroots, working with the team, Public Protector South Africa, to be there for those who are, have reached a point of no return. For, those who, like we have the community of Ikemeling. When we went there, 1 year it was winter, they were sleeping Guma tents, and you'd find a family of 3, 4. There was an old man who was also sick. It was raining. It was so, with my team, that's what we focus on, and we then say, how can we help them? And we receive joy when we see them receiving houses and cooperation from state institutions, providing them with houses. So work is not stopping because there's this court
the side shows that are happening.
Exactly.
But recently you released a number of cases that you're working on, I think over 30 of them.
Yes.
Perhaps you could share with our viewers what criteria you use to take on these cases, and are they initiative-based investigations, or are these cases that people are bringing into the office?
I would say 98% actually of the work we are investigating and these reports we are issuing, people are lodging complaints, either themselves or somebody else lodge complaints on their behalf. So it's very few of cases where one is conducting own initiative, and it was mostly based on the fact that the law allows me to do that, but then based on the fact of the resources, and especially human resources, and the capacity of the institution to handle those matters. We would love to do that, but that's why we have Vision 2023, which has several pillars, and our intention is we deal with only systemic matters where we can help the country or government to change systemic problems, and a number of issues where state institutions are encouraged. Currently we are focusing on that, to establish their own internal complaints mechanism, so that as members of the public you can complain with Home Affairs and be assisted. When you are not assisted, then you use the Public Protector's Office of last resort. So that's what we're focusing on. Very few cases where we will initiate own initiative investigation, like currently now with this COVID-19 corruption-related matters. We've initiated one own initiative investigation in the Eastern Cape relating to the scooters. We would want to check what process has been followed. As I said to you, our process is very simple. What happened? There's these issues of the scooters. what process was followed to acquire. If not, what are the legal prescripts they followed? If they violated any prescripts, how can they remedy that? Because remember, the Constitution says Public Protector should issue remedy, so that we don't have a repetition of this. We will do own initiative in Gauteng, especially with the issues relating to this personal protective equipment and how they were procured. Was the process followed? If there's any members of the executive, remember the Public Protector is the only institution, and that legislation, the Executive Members Ethics Act, that's the one which puts me into the limelight, or as well being attacked and being labeled that I'm factional, because that's the only institution in the country which can investigate the conduct, ethical conduct of the members of the executive. So if you are an MEC, minister, president, deputy president, premier, you are involved in any procurement related, conflict of interest. Actually, it doesn't even say conflict. It says you must not expose yourself to a conflict. And that comes directly from Section 96 of the Constitution. So till now, we are just focused on what the law is saying. But now we end up being labeled as if we are targeting or after certain individuals. But that's how we do our work.
The PPE scandal has hit South Africa. What seems like another pandemic altogether, defined as corruption. The ANC is deeply involved in this. You've seen the media articles, other members of the ANC in positions of government have had to step aside, such as President Ramaphosa's spokesperson, Ms. Khusela Diko. Now, the president has instituted an investigation. But this investigation is NEC members who are cabinet ministers investigating corruption of the COVID-19 funds, PPE, to report back to the president of the country, who is president of the ANC. This is the ANC investigating the ANC to report back to the ANC. Whilst in this country there are organs of investigation such as the Public Protector, the SIU, the NPA, the Hawks, etc., etc. Is this a fair principle for the president to call an investigation on himself, by himself?
By himself. It's not a fair. It's not a fair process. I mean, my advice to the president would be, I think, allowing or even calling upon the Speaker of the National Assembly and the chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, the National Assembly. Actually, they could establish an ad hoc committee, because the role of the Speaker and them, and even in other provinces. That's why we work a lot with the provincial speakers and local speakers, because we are saying to them, you're doing the oversight responsibility. You are not the members of the executive. As members of parliament, you oversee the behavior and performance of the executive. And you are placed there by the people. So you will be playing your role to do the investigation. You can have an ad hoc committee. Alternatively, you can also request the Public Protector, because there's nothing wrong for the president, the executive, requesting the Public Protector. Hence, the Auditor General is being involved in auditing a number of these transactions. And say, Public Protector, Auditor General, NPA, can you help me and investigate this matter, because you are independent institutions. President Mbeki did that during the Amstel. You remember, he appointed the Public Protector, the AG, and the NPA. They conducted the investigation. They came up with a report. But then again, it's how that report was supposed to have been implemented. That was done. So I would say, for the president to be seen to be doing something about corruption, indeed, if you are concerned, he should have established independent process. But don't allow the executive to investigate themselves. You know, issues about SIU also, yes, they can investigate, but remember, SIU also they are established by legislation. They are not a constitutional institution. And their independence, unfortunately, is they cannot just conduct own initiative investigation or people lodge complaints with them. Remember, when you lodge complaints with them, they must still go to the president through justice to say, can you issue a proclamation? And when they've investigated, yes, they can identify any criminal conduct, but they must refer it to the relevant, to the police,
Protector, surely Mr. Lamula should know this, or the president should know the functions and the rights of the SIU?
I think that's why I'm saying, you know, that's my advice. To gain confidence of the people, for people to trust the process, for people to see that, President, you are serious in dealing with this matter. Besides then the Public Protector, AG and NPA working together. Because even those law enforcement agencies, yes, they are independent about DPCI, Hawks and them, but unfortunately they report to the executive. So SIU can come up with a report and it's up to the executive whether he implement that report or not. But then the Public Protector's remedial actions are binding until set aside by the court. But if there's that political will to deal with the matter, you can do that. Or alternatively, then if you don't want to burden the Public Protector, there's the ad hoc process in Parliament where you have different parties who can then be, you know, focus on dealing with this particular matter. That will gain the trust of the people. Because now it's like people are being, told lies because you, as the president yourself, you still in court about your matters and your sealed bank records, and if you are transparent enough, as you are demanded by the Constitution, make sure that you openly say, deal with the matter, and openly also deal with your employees, because I mean he should also pronounce and say you don't take it light. Uguti, your spokesperson is now taken leave of absence, and you need to be decisive and deal with that matter, because it has serious credibility issues over your institution. But besides the issues of the PPEs, we still faced issues about ESCOM. Billions and billions of monies, and the behavior of the executives there. You can't be quiet. You should be dealing with issues, issuing instructions to the relevant ministers to deal with the matters, so that we can have that trust in the system.
I just want to quickly go to the comments of some of our viewers who are listening into the conversation. Very quickly, one of the comments I wanted to read out has disappeared, but just to encapsulate what one of the viewers is asking, if you believe that there's a cahoots of people that are conniving to work against you using the courts of South Africa, have you reported this to the Judicial Service Commission? If not, why have you not taken that stance? Judge Botterell, we've reported her to the Judicial Service Commission because of her comments during one of the very same rogue unit matter, or was it the Pile matter comments, and he issued a judiciary in the country. If we are not happy with each judgment, unfortunately that Judicial Service Committee, it doesn't deal with the merits and how the judgments or court orders are issued, so it's very difficult to say yes they are against me, or then some people are using them against me. But then the only way to deal with that is for me to take that to a higher court. But unfortunately, if the higher court, like that personal cost matter, that, by the way, that's it, the Public Protector of South Africa is the only ombudsman in the world who has been, dealt like that. I mean, me doing my work and being subjected to pay personal costs from my own pocket. But thanks to the South Africans who then took it upon themselves to say we are defending
this institution. This institution is theirs, and they paid that. But even now, if the matter is appearing before a higher court in Pretoria and is negative towards the public protector, we take it to the SCA is negative, hence that freed a matter or personal cost by Judge Tolmei, who issued personal cost after the Concord. You know, the process, the way it was followed. Unfortunately, we cannot go to the JSC. We will have to take it to the highest court, the Constitutional Court, for them to say, but the process which was followed, did the judge apply the law properly? That's all. But it's up to the Constitutional Court. If they find against the public protector again, that's another thing. But the nice thing is that there are NGOs who are coming out and say, we are here, we want to defend the constitutional institutions. There are some political parties who are also saying, I mean, for instance, your EFF, your ATM, they said we are defending the constitutional institution, irrespective of who's occupying that post. But the fact of the matter is, the law must apply equally to each and every person. You cannot treat this person differently to another person because you are the favorite or the media reports positive about you, or you are regarded as this moral person, whereas you are doing very wrong things, and the public protector has uncovered that. Because each and every finding we have, we don't just thumbsuck, we don't just call you corrupt, or we don't say you've violated laws. It's because we have evidence which supports our finding.
Right, that's why you take it up. Well, unfortunately, we'll have to leave it there. My director tells me we've run out of time. Thank you so much for speaking to us, Advocate Mkhwebane. We certainly appreciate you taking time out of your very busy schedule and coming to Galaxy Universal Network to have this conversation. Fiso?
Yeah, and the conversation doesn't end. It surely continues on social media, where we'll have vociferous debates on what is right in this nation. And ultimately, the responsibility lies with all of us to find ourselves incorruptible, to help our fellow man, and to say this is the South Africa we want to build for ourselves and for our children. And
remember, at 8 p.m. we have Sankofa with Maponga J. Be sure to watch that program in just under an hour now at 8 p.m. Central African time. Once again, to all of viewers, thank you so much for tuning into the program. Tomorrow, same time, same place. Good night.